Hello and welcome to the Flix Forum podcast, where each episode we go back and we look at a Netflix original film in the order of release. This is our 11th day of our 12 Days of Christmas special, where we're putting out an episode every day over this festive season. Thanks for joining me today, because today we do have Netflix 356th film from 2021. It's the Italian coming-of-age romance called Caught by a Wave, or Sulla, Stessa, Onda. It's directed by Massimiliano Camiati and stars Elvira Cameroni, Christian Roberto, and Donatella Finocchiaro. I am Jesse, I'm your host. Thanks for joining me today. As always, we will spoil this film as we go through this episode. So if you haven't seen this one and you're keen on checking it out, give us a pause and come back a little bit later on, because we do kick the show off with the Fast Flicks, where we do a quick little summary of what the film is all about. So this one, it's about two teens who are passionate about sailing, and they fall in love but face the dilemma of illness. Yes, this does have some sadness in this film, I guess. So a little bit of a warning there if you're not into a sad film. Maybe give this one a miss over this festive season. But as always with international films, it's very hard to find anything about this film. So all I could work out was that the director wrote the screenplay for this film based upon an event in his own life. Not sure what event, whether he liked sailing or what it was, but that's all I could find out. The translations for this one around the world. So the original Italian Sulla, Stessa, Onda, it translates to On the Same Wave. So that's quite a good title, realistically. I think it's the same in Spanish, Portuguese, Greek, and Vietnamese. In French, it's called Our Summer. In German, it's called With the Waves. In Hungarian, it's called Get Carried Away by the Wave. In Japanese, it's called Couple on the Waves. Not bad. Norwegian, it's called The Last Wave. Russian, it's called Catch the Last Wave. And in Turkish, it's In the Same Wave. So all take on that word of wave, obviously sailing, and those sorts of things too. So very, very similar across the world. This was released on the 25th of March 2021 on Netflix worldwide. It was filmed in and around Palermo in Italy, part of Sicily. I've been fortunate enough to be there, very beautiful part of the world. So as I'm sure you can imagine, some beautiful scenery in this film too. What are the critics and audiences saying about this film? So on Rotten Tomatoes, it does not have a consensus. It only has one review. That is one fresh review, though. The audience, fairly high, 75%, but that is on less than 50 ratings. On IMDb, it sits at a 5.8 out of 10 on about 1,600 ratings. Letterboxd, it's got 3,000 ratings, sits at a 2.5 out of 5, and it's been logged by about 4,500 people. So not a lot of data really to look at as to how this has gone. There's nothing on Metacritic for this film either. What are my early thoughts for this one? I was on board with this. I think, yes, it's melodramatic at times, but I was engaged throughout. The leads, their performances, the sort of touching idea of teenagers in love through thick and thin. Some good messages. This is worth a watch. I really, and the leads, they're very charismatic on the screen too. So positive from me. Let's talk about these characters. Let's talk about Sarah. She's our lead character. She's a determined young woman. She's happy to stand up for herself and does want things her way. She loves sailing. We hear about her past and how she was quite successful in sailing too, but she has muscular dystrophy. And sorry, I struggled with that, but it's something that she struggles with too, and struggles to come to terms with, and wants to hide the idea that she's ill from her love interest because she doesn't want to scare him away, and also I guess that own thought of herself too, that knowing that her future isn't going to be forever, and that's quite a sad thing for a teenager to have to deal with. Her love interest is Lorenzo. He is a sailor who has all the attention of the community. He's going to be successful. The sponsors, all those people are interested. But he does want to focus on Sarah. He falls for her. He does struggle in his own home. His mother's gone. His auntie lives with them and his dad. And she's almost like a stepmother in a maternal sort of way. But she's moving out, and the relationship with his dad, it's not that great either. He does have a sailing partner, Francesco. He's on the same path as him, but makes decisions that gets him thrown out, and almost Lorenzo too. But Lorenzo takes it on himself to make the decisions himself and leave himself and follow his dreams and the love that he feels for Sarah too. Barbara is Sarah's best friend. She recently broke up with her boyfriend, so she's that niggling voice in her head or verbally to her all the time too about being anti-men and not trusting men. And then Sarah's parents, Susanna and Boris, they're an interesting, a compilation of different characters where you see the struggle of parents seeing their own child who's ill, and that idea that they're going to lose their daughter, and they've split up, but they've come back throughout this film to be there for her. And there's also that struggle, that idea she's still a teenager too, and she needs her own space, and how do you do that as a parent when you can see the end coming and you want to spend as much time as possible with your daughter too. The director, Massimiliano Camiati, feature film debut, 4 shorts before this, nothing since, so I'm interested to see whether he's continued down the filmmaking path. Let's talk about some scenes. We start off with the ones that I enjoyed. So for me, there's a moment where Sarah's dad, he comes home, he's been living in another city, comes home, obviously needs to spend time with his daughter. And the mum suggests that instead of staying in a hotel, he could move in with them together. And, for Sarah, they sat her down at the table to tell her. And the dad, Boris, he puts his hand out to hold the mother's hand, and she sort of pulls it back. I thought that was quite funny and showed you that this isn't them getting back together. This is them working together to ensure that they can live the best moments with their daughter too. Katerina, she was this little girl that was at the rehab clinic that Sarah went to, and she provided some nice moments throughout that were humorous and obviously some emotional impact too, and the realness of it when, as a character, she passes away too, and that sort of impacts Sarah quite heavily. Lorenzo, there's a moment where he takes Sarah to this romantic little beach cave. They go out on the water, they're ready to sit back, relax, look at the sunset, and he has this bottle of wine that his auntie gave him, and he just smashes it, and that was just a humorous sort of moment too. Lorenzo, there's a moment he's at home in his room, and he's looking at photos of his mum who's no longer around, and his dad comes in, and they have these nice bonding moments over the photo, and the idea, and they talk about pain and memories and living with that and how hard that can be. I thought that was really well done too. Sarah then has a similar moment with her dad in the car where she's fighting to do one last sailing race, even though doing that might, impact her illness and make it happen a lot quicker. And they have this chat about when she was a child and a baby and how much fun they have, and he didn't want to move away and he shouldn't have. I thought that was a nice moment too. And then the ending too, we sort of get this post a couple of months later, a couple of years later, where Sarah's no longer around, and Lorenzo goes to this church where he took Sarah, and we know the only other person he'd been there with was his mother, who's no longer around, and he puts Sarah's necklace on that Barbara had given to him, and he lies down and looks at the painting on the roof where they'd lay down together and looked at that roof before, and the birds in the painting come alive, almost as if Sarah's now free, and I just thought that was a really impactful end to the film too. All right, some things that didn't work. There's only 2 little things. There's a moment where Sarah and Lorenzo, they're on a beach. They've had this little romantic time, and she goes to kiss him, and then she pushes him off when he goes to kiss back because she's like, oh, there's people here, we can't do it. She was the one that went for the kiss. It just felt really funny to me. And the only other thing, Sarah's parents, they tell Lorenzo about her illness. She didn't have the courage to do it, even though her friend Barbara had told her to. And she comes in and she storms off angrily, and she's like, I wanted to tell you. And then, he storms off and as well. And it's like, well, he didn't really have the right to be angry. It's her, should be up to her to tell him when she felt ready. And then later on, when she goes back to sort of say sorry and that I should have told you, he says, well, yeah, you should have. I was like, come on, like, it's not up to you, mate. It's her illness, her decision. So I thought that was a little bit different. The themes, the ideas in this film, what was this film trying to say? Obviously seizing that moment of life, living life to its fullest while you can. And dealing with illness and grief and the pity that you can feel from others, especially like those who have the illness, but also those around too, the impact it can have on people like parents. And if you love someone, or if people love you, or they're your friend, they're going to accept it. They're going to accept, and they're going to support you. And obviously love is very important in this too. The idea of following your feelings and saying goodbye can be hard, especially when it's a final goodbye. What did I take away from this one? This is just a Netflix connection, I guess. Sarah was at home watching TV at one stage, and the Big Mouth was on the TV in the background. Big Mouth, for those that don't know, it's a Netflix original animated series that's a very adult humor. But I did enjoy that, and I've only watched a little bit from the start. I haven't really kept up to date with it, but that is quite a funny show, so worth a little shout out there. Some questions, some pondering, some thoughts, some ideas. I've got one sort of thing, like the build of Sarah and Lorenzo's relationship at the start. Did it feel rushed? Like, it was super quick, but obviously they wanted to get to the crux of this film. So it's an interesting sort of thing. Like, sometimes when you have a romantic story, you want to see them fighting for each other and coming together after, but it was very quick. It was literally like, cool, we'll sneak out from our camp, we'll go have a dance with some old people, and then we're together. I just thought that was a very interesting sort of quick take on that. Anyway, I'm ready to wrap this up. We give the film a rating out of 5 on this show. For me, it's not the best teen film that's going around. I get that, but I think it's got some really nice moments and some really inspirational messages to see teen illness on screen and the empathy that can be shown through love and feelings. I thought it was really nice, really sweet. I'm giving this a 3 out of 5. 3 out of 5 for me. We're on socials. We have Instagram, we have Facebook, and we have X, formerly known as Twitter. The question for today's episode that I wanted to put out was, this is a quote from Lorenzo's dad, where he said, "Learning to live with pain is a part of life." Like, does this ring true? Are there some things that are just really painful and you've got to continue to live with that pain to continue to grow? Because sometimes, pain, you can't get rid of pain, especially if it's to do with the loss of someone that's super close to you, which we do see throughout this film too. Anyway, we're back tomorrow. We are back tomorrow. I think tomorrow is our last day of our Christmas festive season, and I think we've got a good film for it. We've got the 2021 Christian music romance called A Week Away. This one's directed by Roman White and stars Bailey Madison, Kevin Quinn, Jabril Cook, Kat Connor Sterling, David Koshner, Sherry Shepherd, Ian Tucker, Amy Grant, and Stephen Curtis Chapman. So if you're keen on checking that one out and following along tomorrow, give it a watch. As always, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you tomorrow.